And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we are creditors, and we are going to try to split up and auction off and try to get the estate properties of Uncle Moneybucks in Foreclosed. It's from Mercury Games. It says it plays with 2 to 6 players in about 30 minutes. It's sort of an auction game. Think of, like, you know, in that realm of Time and with For Sale and Felix the Cat in the Sack and things like that. An interesting game that has an interesting twist onto the auction mechanic. Let's take a look. In Foreclosed, you are the creditors who are getting all the stuff from Uncle Moneybags, and you're essentially trying to collect sets of different types of goods or colors, and depending on how many you collect, you're going to get a certain amount of points in general at the end of the game. That's what you're trying to do. Here we have a 4-player game set up. Everyone starts with $4. Everyone starts with 2 property cards, one which is secret, and it will be secret to the end of the game, and face down, and the other one is face up. So everyone has 1 property card, so essentially this is a green, yellow, orange, green, and we have jewelry and different things there. We also have a cool little gavel. That will be the first player, so let's just say it's me. And we have the money, and we have the different cards here, the action cards and the foreclosed cards. Let's talk about how a turn works. Now, these cards are theirs to keep. You can't do anything with those. They're always going to be theirs. But at the beginning of the round, everybody's going to get what they call an exchange card out in front of them, and that's what they would get by default if nothing changed during the round. Okay, so now I have green, and secretly I have yellow here. Nobody else knows that. And I can look around and I go, one of the things you can do that most of the time you'll want to do is exchange. And exchanging is trying to bid to get a card from someone. So I see this green. Well, sure, I'm collecting green. That looks good. Yellow, I'd like yellow because I secretly have yellow. Plus, this has a little heart there, which if I get that, well, because of this heart, will allow me to get an action card. We'll talk about those later. And then we have just straight money. Now, the way that money works is that if he were to take this at the end of the round, he'd get $1. If later on he gets a second money card, he's getting $2. If it's his third money card he takes, $3. So you can really get money and exponentially over the game if you start collecting those money cards, but they don't act as set collection for the big points at the end of the game. So if I were to exchange, let's say if I go to try to exchange with this guy, I would say 1. I would say I'm going to exchange you my exchange card, which essentially is an orange, and it's +1 point at the end of the game, and 1. That's pretty much always the default bid. Now this person has 2 choices. They could say, okay, and they would exchange. They would take the $1, and now it's this person's turn. Everyone gets 1 turn this round. But just because we exchange now doesn't mean that later on this person won't exchange with him later. So just because you've got that now doesn't really much mean anything at all. The other thing I do is I could say, hey, I want to bid this 1. This person can choose to protect. And they could protect because A, they want to keep this, or B, they want to protect it because they don't want me to get it. So what they could do is they could say any amount over 1. They could protect with 2, they could protect with 3, they could protect with all their $4. Whatever they want. Let's say protect with 3. Now, I have 2 choices. I can either be done with him and not try to make a deal with him, or I can spend the total of 4 to get this from him because he has 3. I could spend my 3, get it, and then basically this would exchange like this, like that. He would get the money, he would get his money back that he was protecting for, and he would just make all that money and get it. Or if, let's just say, no, that was too rich, I had done the default bid 1, and he protected it with 3, and I'm like, you know what, it's not worth it that much to me, you can keep that 1. Now, I can go and try to offer an exchange to one of these 2 guys, but I can only go clockwise, meaning I can never go back. So if I go here and I try to bid on this one and he protects, I can't go backwards and try to make a deal with this guy. You can never go downstream, you can only go upstream. So maybe I make a bid for this guy for 1, and he doesn't know I have yellow. He's like, sure, you can take it for 1. So we go like this, he'd get the $1. We go here, and then it'll be this player's turn. Now, when it's this player's turn, if he's protected and sitting there, the only thing that he can do is he's forced to pass, but he gets to take $1 from the bank if he's protected. So now it's this guy's turn. Well, we talked about exchanging. Now, it's interesting because this guy might now want to exchange get with this. Now, if he wants this, all he has to do is pay one more, which would be 4, and he'd be forced to take it from him, and he would get the money. So that's that. Now, that's how exchanging works. The other thing you can do is pass, or you can collect. Collecting is taking one of these action cards or $1. Let's talk about these action cards. Now, these action cards are played at the beginning of your turn, and you can only play one of them per turn. So you can't pick up an action card for an action and use it that turn. And then you can only have 5 action cards. If you get more, you got to discard down to 5. Now, this is played, say, at the beginning of my turn. This tells me at the end of the game, for example, for every card that I have a heart, depending on how many cards I have with hearts, that's how many extra points I would get. This one's also at the end of the game. For every 2 blue property cards, I'll get a point. This one says, basically, I just get to take $2 from the bank. This one says everybody else. Notice how this one said me, the person who plays it. This one says other people. So other people have to pay the bank $1 at the beginning of my turn. This one says I could put this down on any of my property cards that have a +1 or +2, and it doubles that card's points at the right there. And this one, let's say you put it in the middle of the table, and it does it for everybody. For every 2 orange property cards, it's minus a point. Those are the different things action cards can do. So let's say it's now this player's turn, and they're fine. Everybody would just take their exchanged properties. If they already have that color, they would sort of line them up with them. So if this guy already had an orange, he would put it down like that so people can clearly see what they have. And then this would pass to the next player, and a new round of exchange cards would come out, and we would just continue this again. Again, on your turn, you're either trying to exchange, you're collecting by either taking an action card or $1, or if you've already protected, you're forced to pass and take $1. This will continue until this entire deck runs out. Now, you take out a certain amount of cards at the beginning of the game, depending on how many players they are. And then once the game's over, essentially you're going to count up all your points. And for each of the sets that you have, depending on how many you have, let's say I had 5 blue, it'd be 9 points. And 7 yellows, it'd be 16 points. I'd count all those up. I'd adjust some points depending on some of the cards and action cards that are out there. I'd add some of the points that are there and certain things like that. And then the one who has the most points at the end is the winner. Now, I like generally the little quick filler auction games. I love For Sale. I love Felix the Cat in the Sack. Those are 2 of my favorites. How does this stack up to the standard of those auction games? I think this thing brings an interesting aspect to the bidding and auction element. I like the fact that you can, when you're exchanging, I'm going to bid to exchange for something. And that person can either be like, okay, you can have it, or no, I'm going to protect it. How much is he going to pay to protect it? Good decisions to make. But where this game really opens up is as the game goes on and people start collecting sets, and you're seeing what people are collecting, and you're seeing what exchange cards are out there for them. That person really wants orange. I'm going to go try to get that, so that they have to overbid for it. And it's interesting you're forcing people to pay more for it, but if you force them too much and they pay off, then you're going to have to spend a lot of money on something you don't want. That dynamic there is really, I think, what makes this game enjoyable for me. It was an interesting twist on that. The action cards are cool. Playing them down and hurting other people, or getting yourself some money, or having them and people don't know what you're going for until towards the end of the game. You're playing them down, and hey, I get more points for having 2 of this color, or things like that. Interesting hidden elements there. But for me, the game really shines when people start bluffing and trying to figure out and stopping people from getting things that they don't want them to have, and watching how when things can exchange, you spend all this money, things are exchanged, and then someone else later on exchanges with you. Pretty interesting concepts here. I don't like it with 2. The 2-player variant's not very good. 3 is okay. 4+ is where I would recommend playing this game. But if you're looking for an interesting twist on a quick auction game, it takes about 30-35 minutes. This is definitely in that category. I wouldn't say it knocked For Sale or Felix off the shelf. Didn't knock it off its perch, but it is a good alternative to those games that's still quick and still has some interesting things to it. Foreclosed.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.